First pick.
Welcome to On the Clock. On the Clock's presented by our friends at Titan Bat Company. If you're looking for the highest quality handcrafted wood bats in the game, Titan Bats has you covered with premium maple, ash, and birch game bats in 10 different models and colors to fit your swing and style. As you're gearing up for the spring season, Titan Bats is the perfect option for your next wood bat. In addition to game bats ranging from youth baseball to softball to men's baseball, Titan Bats also offers award bats that make the perfect gift to celebrate a teammate, coach, or baseball fan in your life. Check them out at titanbats.com and use the code JB15 for 15% off of your first order. All right, it's Tuesday, April 15th. This is On the Clock, your Just Baseball, College Baseball, and MLB Draft podcast. Tons of news happening over the week. Again, it's a lot of top 25 updates, a lot of mayhem. We got Tyler was out getting some live looks for the MLB draft. I was out there as well. But the biggest news is we've got Jason Ratcliffe from 64 Analytics joining us today on the pod. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. We are, 10 weeks into the season. It feels like we're finally to the point where we can stop saying, oh, there's a small sample size. There's finally a large enough sample size to where we can feel like we can make objective statements on our subjective thoughts. So, no, really getting into the fun part of the season.
Yeah. And you get the conference play, you get a lot of the upsets. It's always a good time. I guess we should get into some of the top 25 mayhem that happened over the weekend. Let's start with Arkansas, your team, Jason. That was actually an electric series, though. There was a lot of back and forth in that. It ended with a walk-off home run by Henry Hunter. I hate the two first names because I keep getting them backwards. But walks it off in the 12th. How do you feel about that series?
Well, first off, it's a little bit of a stab in the back for Arkansas fans. I mean, one of your famous tight ends, Hunter Henry. So effectively, you've got your opposite who's now getting you back. But I mean, you look at it, phenomenal starting pitching for Georgia.
Yeah.
Really, if someone was to say, what is Georgia's Achilles heel? It's always been their starting pitching. And especially, I think their Sunday night pitcher went 5 2/3. I think it was their longest starting pitching of the season, which is crazy to say out loud. But if they can really start to put in a substantial, okay, these are our Friday, Saturday, Sunday guys, it's going to be really hard to stop them because their bullpen is legit. They've got a lot of arms. They just haven't really been able to say, these are our guys that can get us 4 to 6 innings. They haven't had that. And they actually had that this weekend against a top 5 hitting program in Arkansas.
Yeah.
I mean, Arkansas had their opportunities, but they also struck out a tremendous amount. Really, they sat outside edge pretty much the entire time, right versus right. And then they spotted the fastball. They did a great job of attacking the hitters they should, and they did a good job of throwing sliders off of the zone against the hitters they should. I thought it was a masterclass for Wes Johnson in pitching. It was how to attack the guys. Yeah, they gave up their home runs. Helfrick had a really good weekend, which was good for Arkansas because he's kind of struggled a little bit. He's really been coming on, especially in SEC play. But he had 3 bombs. I mean, just to give Arkansas a little bit of props because, as you stated, they are my team. The bullpen was probably the best that it's looked this season so far. Fouch, he's basically been, we always talk about K per 9. It's almost been a hit batter per 9 for Fouch. It's been incredible the amount of guys that he's hit. He was legitimately untouchable for Georgia. Same thing for Wiggins. I mean, they had 4 bullpen guys: Gibbler, Fouch, Wiggins, and Jimmy Jimenez, who were all just incredible out of the pen. Again, almost the inverse of Georgia. They couldn't. Gackle is pretty much one of the confusions of the season for Arkansas. Spoiler alert, I don't think he's going to be starting next weekend.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm not really sure what that's going to look like for them. They've been trying to find, maybe that third starter. Does Wood come back? There's thoughts that he may come back for the A&M series. Do they throw him immediately into the starting position? Honestly, I'm intrigued to see what they do. Vital Cheese was good. I mean, he gave up a couple of bombs, But when you play, at Foley Field, which sometimes is, a bounce house, you're going to get up home runs. So I'm getting long-winded. It was a good series, but you have to give your props to Georgia because at the end of the day, they were the better team.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit and labor a little bit more on the point you talked about the arms for Georgia kind of stepping up. Kolten Smith earned the win, got 5 strong innings, and had a season high 8 strikeouts. A guy that Georgia has really needed to step up. And the other guy, Brian Curley, who's moved from the bullpen to the
Yeah.
starting rotation, went 5 innings, 2 earned, I think 5 Ks. Tyler, talk about both of these guys a little bit more because I know they're big draft guys potentially for the 2025 MLB draft. Not sure where they land on the top 200 board, but they're guys that are going to be considered. Like Curley's got some electric stuff, especially with the fastball. But talk a little about those guys and what that kind of means for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, they're both really intriguing. I think the big thing with Kolten, because obviously Kolten was a big prospect for us coming into the year.
Yeah.
And we thought, coming off a collegiate national team appearance where he looked pretty good, like it's a ton of pitchability. But coming into this year, he's been really slider heavy, and they were using him as kind of like a spam slider guy coming out of the pen. And over the past couple of weeks, you mentioned the 5 innings pitch, 8 strikeouts. He had a similar outing where it was 5 hitless with 8 strikeouts a couple weeks ago. Do I think he's turning a corner? I think he is. In terms of like a draft stock rise, not really sure right now because he's still really slider heavy. I think I was just looking at the pitch count that he had for this past weekend, and he was 50. It was like 50 sliders compared to like 11 fastballs. So he's really leaning into being a spin monster right now, where he's having to spam breaking balls to kind of get outs. Which isn't necessarily a good thing because you really do need your fastball to perform. But it's nice to see him come back, and I think he does have a case to be a top 200 guy right now. But if I see a bit more of this, it'll be a guy that'll be put in there. And I think Curley's the same thing too. Like I think the best way to describe him is he's a really big bulldog, despite the fact that he's like 5'11", $190.
Yeah.
Really fiery competitor. The fastball plays up well from the velocity that he has. I know he's touched 100 this year, but in a starting role, he's been performing pretty well, throwing a good amount of strikes. He's got that cutter slider mix, or like it's like a cutter slider S pitch. Like it kind of morphs between the two. Keeps hitters honest. Really does a good job of getting whiffs. I think it's his best pitch overall, and I think he's got a decent amount of whiff with the curveball as well. So he's more of a reliever at the next level, where I think he could rise pretty quickly with the metrics that he has. Do I think right now that he's a starter? Probably not, but he's shown enough to where he'll give you 5, maybe 6 out of the pen if you need a long relief. But if you want him to really perform at his best, look at him in a setup or a closer role for me. But both really, really look good so far, and I want to see more from both. But as of right now, it's starting to look pretty good for them.
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely the most exciting SEC series. I do want to move on to the LSU Auburn series. Auburn went and swept LSU, which is pretty crazy in itself. We can talk about Samuel Dutton and a few other things, but the one topic I kind of want to talk about is the LSU rotation, right? Cade Anderson's, I think, solidified himself as a Friday night guy. Anthony Iazon's kind of been a little bit of a mixed bag. And Chase Shores has just kind of not had it. Right now, he's got a 5.12 ERA, 41 strikeouts, and 38.2 innings pitched, but he's walked 20 guys. You see guys like Case and Evans throwing out of that bullpen, and you're like, when are they going to finally move Shores out of that rotation? But do you have thoughts about LSU and kind of this Auburn series?
It was the name you didn't mention, which I have, honestly, I'm just waiting. I'd be amazed if he's not pitching this weekend, Zac Cowan.
Yeah.
So we've got him as a top 50 pitcher out of the bullpen. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the volume that he's thrown, I think he's up to almost
innings.
30 innings pitched, sub 1 ERA. I mean, he's a guy that honestly, when they got him out of the portal, I think from Wofford, I think he was a top 50 pitcher at Wofford as a starter last year. So it was kind of like, okay, well, and they had a few of those. Myers, they had a number of portal pitchers. It was like what are they going to do with this rotation when they get Shores back? And I think it's kind of caused a little bit of intrigue. But now that you've kind of got this set commodity, this set known entity, given that they've had a little bit of struggles, I'd be really surprised if they're not. I mean, there's a lot of value to be had in that guy who can get 3 to 4 innings pitched, either in 1 or 2 appearances on a weekend. Because, college baseball doesn't really have a true closer a lot of the times. But with the offense that they have, or the potential offense that they have, you would think that if they could have a guy that could go in there to get 4 to 6 innings pitched with, generally going to get you a quality start, you would want to have that and get momentum for your offense. So
Yeah.
for me, that's the big thing coming up for them is what do they do with Cowan? Do they
Yeah.
keep him in the bullpen? Do they start him? Do they trust what they've got? I mean, they've got a ton of talent. And so I honestly, I'm not worried about LSU. I just don't know what they're going to do in terms of moving forward since they've had such an elite piece out of the bullpen.
Yeah, I agree there. Tyler, do you have any thoughts on those?
No, I'm with Jason on Zac Cowan. I mean, you look at what he's been able to do out of that bullpen, and I think the change has really been the big piece for him. Like, that's his best pitch. The guys have not been able to touch that, but then you look at what Chase Shores, hasn't really been able to do has been getting lefties out. And I think Cade Anderson, too, kind of fits that mold as well, where, he's had that issue with lefties throughout the year. Like, Mississippi State put a bunch of lefties in that lineup. And I think they put up like 4 or 5 earned runs against him and kind of lit him up in the first inning too. And I think that was really the same case with Auburn this week, where they exploited the fact that he doesn't really have an out pitch against lefties and continue to go with that. With Chase Shores, it's a similar story where the fastball, being the kind of sinker that it is, it's not going to miss a ton of bats. And guys are seeing it very well. I just don't think there's enough deception, despite the fact that he's 6'8", 250. A lot of limbs coming at you. You kind of look at those guys, and there's a lot of deception. Not really a ton there, and he doesn't really have the changeup to kind of get guys out too. So I think lefties have like a 880 OPS against him, which isn't great. So I do believe moving forward, like Zac Cowan would make a great Sunday starter for them going down the line. I think Chase Shores can definitely unlock something in the pen moving forward. Like, he's just like a very reliever-ish arm that can really bucket up to triple digits, flash that really good slider, and be that 1-2 punch kind of guy to pair with maybe, like you mentioned, Kassan Evans out of the bullpen in that late, 8th inning, 9th inning kind of role to where, LSU has a lead 1-2 innings going into the final 2 innings. Good luck trying to get a run across.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like hard to say that LSU is like super struggling, but when you go and get swept out of Auburn, you want to get things turned around quickly, right? Like, you want to get into that next series and not have that same struggle, because the SEC play is not going to get easier. I feel like we're talking about a little bit about LSU struggles, but it's still a really, really good team.
Yeah, and I think it was the first sweep of LSU by Auburn since 1988.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
Talking about the Auburn Tigers, though, that team is absolutely on fire. Samuel Dutton has stepped up, just absolutely shoved. He, in that game, went 6 innings, shutout innings, 3 hits, struck out 7. And then it's another masterful outing by him. He's really kind of stepped up. He's a guy who doesn't have that plus stuff, and he just goes and gets it done. He lives in the strike zone, commands all his pitches really well, and he just goes out and pitches. Like, you talk about pitchability, and that's just a guy who has it. To me, it's just interesting to see how this rotation's kind of solidified itself with Cade Fisher. They're still kind of trying to figure out the Sunday guy. I don't know who's quite there now. It was like Christian Chatterton for a while. He's really struggled with that role. But the lineup has showed up, led by Ike Irish, Chase Fralick, Cooper McMurray. Like, all these guys are raking, and it's just fun to watch. Jason, I don't know if you have thoughts on Auburn.
I mean, for me, the interesting thing for Auburn is, Ike Irish is probably the guy that still stands out, but
yeah,
I mean, they have maybe 1-2 guys with an OPS above 1,000. Like even McMurray, who has been great for them for so long, I think he's just over 1,000. So it's not as if they've got these 2 to 3 guys who are just standing out so much and like standing on their head, and this is why they're dominating. You pointed it out quite well. They're pitching well, they're getting timely hitting, and their big bats are showing up when they need them, and they're winning a lot of close games. And that honestly, it's one of those things where it feels like the past 2 3 years, it's the complete opposite. Like
Yeah.
past 2 3 years, Auburn was losing these games, and now they're winning these games. And so it's one of those things where you look at them from a ranking standpoint and you say like, okay, well, they're winning all of these games, like they're clearly a good team. But then you look at like their collection of stats and go, okay, well, they're not the top 10 in this, they're not the top 10 in that, but what they do a great job of is just winning the games.
Yeah. I think that's huge. Tyler, before we move on to the next one, you got any thoughts on Auburn?
Really good ball club.
Yeah.
Is probably the best way to put it. Like, don't want to keep like harking on what Jason said, because I very much agree with what Jason said and don't want to like double down on it. But the turnaround they've had from last year, like they've already superseded their overall win total last year, but also their SEC win total. They won like 8-22 or 8-22 rather in SEC play. So huge shout out to Butch Thompson for the turnaround there. They've really looked like a team that will go back to hosting this year.
Yeah. Love it. Want to move on to Oklahoma versus Vanderbilt. This is a series I kind of struggle with because like Oklahoma just lost the series to Alabama, right? The Cowan to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's a team we had at number 16 with Oklahoma at 20. Vanderbilt just feels like this team that just like keeps going on these hot and cold streaks, and I cannot figure out what kind of team they are. There's sometimes I watch them play and I'm like, oh yeah, this team's definitely going to Omaha. And there's other times you watch them play and I'm like, oh, maybe not. You got guys like RJ Austin, like this team's got pieces like JD Thompson, all those kind of things, but it just doesn't seem like it's molding for them to go on like these hot streaks. Jason, I don't know if you have any thoughts on Vanderbilt and kind of what they've bringing to the table.
So Vanderbilt, it's interesting because 3 4 years ago, Vandy ball was like, okay, it's 310 to left field, just hit bombs, like hit it over the monster, and
Yeah.
they had. I mean, it feels like they've slowly gone from this, extra base hits team to almost just like a slap hitting team.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have a guy in their team that's like, okay, we're pretty sure that this guy's going to get to 15 home runs. I don't think they'll have anyone that will. But they have a collection of just hitters who get on base, who almost similar to like the Texas A&M of like 2 3 years ago, where they would get to 2 strikes, they choke up on the bat, and they just fight, and they'd either get a walk or they'd get like a line drive over the shortstop's head. Like that feels like Vanderbilt of this year. And then you combine that with really good pitching. We've got 4 of their pitchers in the top 250, 3 guys in the top 100. I believe it's Bowker. I mean, I think
Cody
he's a guy
Bowker.
that you're not going to see him throw it 90 miles per hour too frequently, but just quirky, like crazy quirky. And they're probably the most unheralded pitch in college baseball is the changeup. There may not be a bet. Him and Kanak for Clemson, I think, have like the 2 of the best changeups, and it's really neat to see a guy who you'll hear the play-by-play or the color announcer say like, "Oh, I bet a changeup's coming." I mean, he can say that because like 2/3 of the pitches are going to be changeup, but everyone knows it's coming, and that thing just dives away from the hitter every single time, and it's a masterclass in the difference between a guy you can throw up there, and you're talking about just spin it. And then there are some guys who are just like, all right, I'm going to put this wherever I want it, and you're not going to be able to touch it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking at the arms, and a lot of it's like coming from the bullpen too, right? Like JD Thompson's not throwing up like
Sawyer Hawks.
Yeah. Yep, Sawyer Hawks has been nasty. Austin Nye has been nasty. Alex Kranzler has been nasty. Like the whole bullpen is just absolutely dominating. And like you mentioned, Cody Boker, he's got a 3.32, and then like JD Thompson's got a 4.44 ERA. And so like the rotation has like Austin Nye's been good out of the rotation as well. But like the bullpen has just been electric, which has been cool to see. Yeah. Talking about home runs, the leader is 6 right now with Brody Johnston. So yeah, I don't know if they're going to get a guy getting to 15 unless Brody just goes absolutely off. Brody, we're counting on you. You got to be the guy. Get yourself to 15 home runs.
Which is it's so interesting because I mean, just a few years ago, it was the Vandy boys stomping on home plate after every single home run, and now it just feels like let's get to 6 runs and let's trust our pitching.
Yeah. Going into Oklahoma, Tyler, I kind of want to ask you here, what was really impressive to me in this series was that I think Kyson Witherspoon got pushed today because he was not feeling well or something. I couldn't remember. Cade Crossland comes in, fills in, has a career best outing, striking out 8 over 5 2/3 innings. I know Cade Crossland's kind of a big draft guy too. Kyson Witherspoon seems fine, came out the next day, was untouchable, went 7 innings, complete game shutout. But kind of talk about this Oklahoma pitching staff, and I feel like they're a little bit underrated in some sense. Like not many people are paying attention, but I feel like this Oklahoma pitching staff is really good as well.
They are, and you mentioned being underrated in a way, and I think that's true. Like, granted, Kyson got moved back a day because I think it was back spasms, so they wanted to get him like ramped up in a proper way, get him set and ready to go. So they put Crossland into that Friday spot. And I think he just came off like a 6-inning outing against Alabama, did well against LSU last week, despite the fact that I think he gave it like 5 or 6 earned runs. So the stuff's there. And, looking at what they have, like Crossland's obviously, everybody knows the changeup. It's probably one of the most disgusting changeups in all college baseball. I think I kind of labeled it as like the Devin Williams parachute changeup-esque or whatever Rob Friedman calls it at this point. But like that's essentially what it is. And the fastball plays well. I just don't know if he ever really will have a breaking ball. So that kind of is why he's a little bit farther down. But like then you get the Witherspoon twins that are going to be, Saturday, someday. And looking at what they have in the bullpen, like I think it's Bowden's his last name, Catalano, who's eligible next year. They've got a couple really intriguing guys that are both funky, but also very effective. And speaking of guys that could also, fit that mold when talking about Vanderbilt, and I know I'm late on this, but Connor Fennell is very, very funky. He struck out 40 batters and 21 in some 21 in the third innings or something. And he's only walked 5 guys, has like a sub 3 ERA. Like, that's the guy that I want to throw out there too. Is he came in from Dayton because of the head coach leaving to be on the Corbin staff, but he's been really effective. So kind of want to throw his name out there too because he's really been saving Vanderbilt on the Sunday games, and I think he even started on a Friday a couple weeks ago against A&M and did pretty well. I think he struck out like 8 in 3 innings or something, so it was really impressive.
Adding on to Tyler, he's also a lot of fun to watch. If you watch any of his games, he's the kind of guy who's up there literally like bouncing on the mound. And he's waiting for the end of he's waiting for the batter to get in. And they're literally now training their hitters. Like, don't make eye contact with this guy until you're ready. Because the moment you lay eyes on him, he's throwing a pitch. So it's if anyone is in a hurry to watch a game, watch Sunday games for Vanderbilt.
Yeah. I love it. Just to wrap up the SEC here, talk about Mississippi State taking down Alabama. Mississippi State was a team that really struggled in conference. I think they were 3-9 going into this Alabama series. Alabama was kind of red hot. Thought that they were going to easily kind of take this. They won the first game 13-3. So I saw like Friday night, I'm like, all right, Alabama's going to easily handle this series. Not so fast. Mississippi State comes back. They bounce back with a 4-1 victory on day 2, and then on Sunday they get a 4-2 win, just kind of sealing that series win. I don't really know what to make about the Bulldogs. I know they got some good pieces like Pico Cone and a few others, but Tyler, what did you see kind of in this Mississippi State team?
A lot of fight and a lot of
Yeah.
grit. This is a team that didn't have the greatest start coming into SEC play. I think they've now won 5 of their last 6 SEC games, and have really turned a corner. So for me, I think the offense has found its stride. You talk about, Hunter Hines comes back last year after potentially being one of the top power guys in the draft. Comes back this year. I don't think he's had the greatest start, if I remember correctly. But like up and down the lineup, Dylan Cupp, Nolan Stevens, all these younger guys have finally found their footing, and they're now pushing themselves into more playing time. And I think they've done a really good job of really maturing and becoming the team that we kind of thought they could be. And shout out to Lemonis for finally getting to that point, because it did look for a while like not to say anything bad about Lemonis himself, but like, were we wondering if he sticks after this year? Considering they're not even 5 years removed from a College World Series championship, and they've kind of not floundering per se, but they had a couple years there where we weren't sure what was going on. And last year, get the 2 seed in Virginia, and this year kind of had that hot start, but then cool down. So I'm really intrigued to see what this team can do. If they keep the hot streak up, I think they're firmly back into getting a 2 or 3 seed somewhere in the tournament. But, seeing what they've played recently, like South Carolina, first off, yikes.
Yeah.
I do feel bad for Paul Maneri, because I think he's got a good squad, but it's
not coming together.
It really isn't. And they gave up 2 grand slams in the 9th the other day to get
Yeah.
swept by A&M, which was really, really tough to watch. So that was really, really, really tough to watch, man. I do genuinely feel bad for the players and the coaches down there at South Carolina, because that is a way to get your heart ripped out and then stomped on and then thrown into a river.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to kind of look at this Alabama team too. I still think it's really good. I feel like I'm less worried about it, given that they didn't really get blown out in their losses. I still think it's a really, really good team. The lineup just absolutely bangs with Justin LeBron. Richie Bonamolo has been really good. Will Hodo's been really good. Like I have a confidence in this team with Rob Vaughn at the helm that this team's going to do really, really well. Jason, I don't know. What are your thoughts on Alabama? Are you worried, concerned?
No, I'm not. I mean, I think part of the concern with how well they were doing at the beginning of the year was this a representation of kind of who they are, or was it the fact that, maybe they just got hot at the right time? I think they've got a ton of great pieces. But I mean, really, for me, and I hate to go back to what we were previously talking about with Mississippi State, but I will a little bit, because I feel a little bit more comfortable on that. This is my buy low moment of the year. I think Mississippi State is a team to look out for. They have one of the best pitching staffs in the country. It's not just Pico Cone. They've got a lot. I think one thing, if you can point to at the beginning, it felt like they had this almost who's going to be our starting pitchers.
Yeah.
And it didn't really feel like they ever figured it out. And at times it almost felt like they were giving games away. And it's not as if the other teams weren't winning, because clearly they were. I mean, with their record is what it is. But it was almost if it was like, okay, well, this guy's dominating, and then they took him out after 2 innings because they were trying to figure out who was going to be the next pitcher. I feel as though if someone's looking for a team to jump onto a bandwagon of someone who maybe not be as highly thought of right now, it's Mississippi State, because I would not want to be the 1 seed that has them as a 2 or a 3 if they make it in.
No, and I mean, you can't really fault the head coach for trying to figure that stuff out during the season, right? Because he wants it figured out before SEC play, and if you're going to be doing that in the non-conference play, because I don't think they played very well in the non-conference schedule as well.
They didn't.
So
they didn't.
It's just like one of those things where if you they got a team ERA 3.68. To your point, they're very good pitching staff. But if you're trying to figure out who's going to start, like things are going to be in flux, things are going to get moved around, and it's almost like people can't get into a rhythm.
I mean, they strike out 32% of their batters.
Yeah,
They've got a
pretty
WHIP
good.
that's below 1.2. They've got an OPS allowed that's like 600. I mean, everything up and down the line, you're like, this is a top 5 pitching staff in the country.
Yeah.
And to your point, I mean, I saw them in Houston, and every single game I was like, oh, they got this one. This one
Yeah.
they've got this. And they scored, I think, 8. I think they had 9 straight hits versus Rice. And of course, it was Rice, and it went to like an immediate run rule. But then they played Oklahoma State, and I can't remember. I think it was Arizona. In each of the games, I was like, oh, they've got this one. And it didn't materialize.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of wraps us up for the SEC. Moving on to the ACC, the obviously better conference, as Tyler's predictions were made during the preseason. Let's talk about, Tyler, your team here. NC State upsetting number 18 Louisville. They took 2 or 3 in that series. It just seemed like no lead was safe for the Louisville Cardinals. The pitching staff wasn't great. They surrendered 11 hits and issued 16 walks. Could not find the strike zone at all. NC State got 7 runs in the 4th inning, and they followed that with 3 more in the 5th in that frame. So NC State bats were able to come back and kind of, I don't know, they were able to kind of move forward on some of those deficits. Tyler, what would you see in NC State that you really liked?
So I love how you mentioned Louisville not having like a safe lead, but they did win 25-8.
They did the last game,
so.
Yes. On Sunday, right?
No, Saturday. It was the mid game because the rubber match was 11-1.
That's right.
The NC State won. But to your point, Louisville's pitching has kind of fallen off a little bit. Like we mentioned, Patrick Fords as a guy that was like beginning of the year looked really, really good, and I think he had walked like 7 guys and didn't record a strikeout in 3 innings. And mind you, Dom Fritton didn't do very well either. I don't even think he completed 3, but Jacob Dutton saving the day with 4 shutout innings. And he's a guy that really had a really bad stretch to start the year. Like, had a couple outings where you saw the stuff and you knew it could be good, but some other outings were just complete blow-ups. And first off, having him back to what he was, if this is how he's going to be the rest of the year, good luck to guys in later innings. But I think this is also the NC State lineup maturing. It's a really young team. I talked to Elliot Avent last week post-game after they walked off Virginia. And Avent made changes to where Ty Head is now the leadoff guy. It's not Luke Dixon anymore. And Ty Head has been kind of underrated as a freshman. Obviously the power's not been there, but it's a really polished approach at the plate, doesn't whiff, doesn't chase, and he's a premium glove in center field. Like it's been insane that a freshman has been able to put up the kind of defense that he's been able to do all year. Like he's been highlight reel after highlight reel play. And Avent even went as far as saying like he's doing very special things here, and it's really true. Like what he's been able to do now at the top of that lineup has been great because he's a good table setter for the rest of that lineup with Josh Hogue, and I think it's I can't remember who the other guy is that hits behind him, but having those guys to really set up the top of that lineup, they don't have the leadership they had last year with Garrett Pennington and Alec Makarevich.
Yeah.
So they're still obviously trying to find their footing, but we mentioned the Virginia game where they came back from an 8-2 deficit, win 9-8. Coming into this weekend, yes, they got punched in the face on Saturday, 25-8. They run rule Louisville the next day to win the series. So I think NC State's finding their footing. In most years, NC State gets hot really late. That's an Avent thing to have over the past few years. So I'm not trying to say I'm like cautiously taking an approach here with NC State because I do believe this team has turned the corner and is going to put themselves in contention to host this year. But as a fan, I don't want to be walking on eggshells with this team because they are still young. There's a chance that it could fall apart, and I'm hoping it doesn't happen, but also at the same time, like I need to be told to not be as biased against my team. So
Yeah.
that's the best way to put it. But the past 2 weekends have been a very positive sign for the Wolfpack.
Yeah, and I would say in terms of like concerns about Louisville, I think the one thing that I've noticed about this team too is they had Parker Meadows who last threw on March 8th, right? And he came out of that game with an undisclosed injury and hasn't thrown since. And he was kind of a significant part to that rotation. Like right before that injury, he had 2 back-to-back games where he went 6 innings and only gave up 1 earned run in those 2 starts. So like missing a guy like that and having to fill a rotation spot like that, I think has been tough for Louisville. But the fact that they've been playing so well without him, I still have some confidence in this team overall. Jason, are you as concerned about Louisville?
Honestly, I don't know if I have a great feel for Louisville.
Yeah.
They're honestly for me, Louisville and NC State are kind of in the same bucket. I think they could lose to anybody, and I think they could beat anybody. I
Yeah.
think Tyler has a great feel for Ava, and as an Arkansas fan who saw them come back and win 2 in a row after losing 21-2, or whatever the score was in that super regional in 2021, I will never count out NC State, but it's one of those things where I don't know if I could feel solid enough to say this is a team that I feel like is an Omaha team.
Yeah.
Because I do feel as though, yes, they could win a series. Do I think they could win back-to-back series in a championship environment? Honestly, I don't think so just yet. Both teams feel very similar to me, to where I wouldn't want to play them in a regional, but I would almost be excited to see them in a super, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And speaking of another team, I can't figure out too, kind of in the same category as Wake Forest. And that's the last series in the ACC, unless you've
No
got Wake
idea.
Forest. Yeah.
No idea on Wake Forest. No, they're one of the teams where I feel like I would have been that investor that said, like, Wake Forest, like, jump on it, and then they just go ahead and get swept. Like, I don't get them. I keep wanting to put on the Demon Deacon hat, and every time I get it polished off, I just kind of they have a weekend like this. So it's one of the things, like on Twitter, like we'll our rankings will have them pretty high up, and we
Yeah.
have to say, like, oh well, this is an objective metric. Like, look at their team statistics, look at other, and then they have a weekend like, and it's just really hard to argue. So honestly, and Tyler, maybe you can shine some light on this. Feels like the ACC. If you were to wrap it up into a singular sentence, is I don't know. Other than Florida State,
Maybe
it
North
feels
Carolina, but
yeah. Well, but even North Carolina, they've got like 2, 3 guys that are above like 300. Like it's not a team where you look at it and go like, okay, there's your first round pick. Like they've had, obviously they have Stevenson, the catcher, but I mean, again, it just doesn't feel like outside of Clemson, Florida State, it's like these guys are gonna be your every single weekend we can trust that they're gonna put forward like a solid product. It's almost like a roll of the dice with everyone else is what it feels like.
yeah, Tyler, does that mean that the ACC is it's not just means less, it just means I don't know? All right.
I'll have to ask Micah about that. Maybe see if we
Yeah.
can put it on the hat. But
Yeah.
like to your point, Jason, where like Florida State, Clemson, and you can even throw like Georgia Tech in with that because now they're
great point.
Yeah.
Great point.
They're the undisputed 1 seed in the ACC now. Like outside
yeah.
of that, you're kind of throwing darts at a board and kind of hoping it sticks. Like Stanford, they go into UNC, they win that series, then they sweep Duke, and then they've kind of just fallen apart since. And we talk about Wake Forest. Like this is a team that comes off a home loss, a series sweep against Virginia Tech, who I think Virginia Tech's one of the more underrated teams. But then Wake Forest goes to Florida State, wins 2 of 3, wins the series, and then goes to UNC and just gets pummeled. And you look at Virginia Tech, they sweep Wake Forest. Then they go to Notre Dame, win a 2-3, and then they get swept at home by Florida State. So I'm like, where the consistency is in the league right now, I really don't know. So does that mean my stance changes from the beginning of the year? No, I don't think it does. But I think with Wake Forest, looking what they have over the next couple of weeks, they get Boston College this week. Then I believe they get let me see who they get here. So they get BC this weekend. They go to Stanford next weekend. Then they get the break with finals at the beginning of May. Then they get Pitt at home. And if Louisville keeps kind of trending where they have now, they get to go to Louisville last week of the season. Those are all 4 winnable series for Wake Forest.
Yeah.
So personally, if you and like go forward with that and like they lose a series there, that's not a good sign.
Yeah. I mean, on paper, that sounds like an 8 to 9 win, something like maybe like 8-4, 9-3. But yeah, they're a team that on paper they're legit. Lunsford has been just lights out this year.
Yeah.
Merrick Houston, they've got so much talent. And again, this is just a statement for me of the ACC. I just don't know. And you were absolutely right about Georgia Tech. They've got 2 of the best hitters in the country, heading that lineup, and it's really neat to see Lodise because, we were talking about before the show of how do you translate like D2 to D3 or D1 or like who's gonna. It's so neat to see a guy jump from a D2 to D1 and not just jump, but like make a splash of a jump.
Yeah.
So it's really neat to see as a fan of the game to see a guy just take his opportunity and thrive.
Yeah, I love it. Last team we want to talk about, speaking of teams that probably don't have those question marks anymore, TCU. This team is just absolutely red hot. We put Kansas in our top 25, and TCU was like, you're not a top 25 team, and it just kicked the crap out of them. It was absolutely nuts. Like, this team is also running on a lineup with 2 freshmen in Sawyer Strosnider and Noah Franco, who are just absolutely mashing. It's kind of incredible to watch. I mean, they have the veteran guys like Carson Bowen, Anthony Silva, who are doing some things on the field for them, of course. But and you got like Tommy Laporte, like hitting 100 over the weekend. Like, this guy's nasty out of the rotation. I really like this TCU team. I think that I mentioned this in our preseason pod too, that they had a chip on their shoulder after getting snubbed last year into the playoffs. I'm all in on TCU. I don't know how you guys feel.
100%.
I like how you mentioned it's like Carson Bowen and Anthony Silva, they're doing something.
Yeah, they're hanging out.
Yeah, but like to your point with Sawyer Strosnider, and you can even put like Noah Franco into this, Chase Brunson, Cole Kramer, like the middle of that lineup is really, really, really good. And I think there's a case that Strosnider is probably the best freshman in the entire country.
Oh, it's not a case. It's a fact right now.
Okay.
That one is signed, sealed, and delivered at the current moment. I mean, you've got Curriel at LSU, but no, he's got it by a lot right now.
Honestly, good for him. Strosnider was good. Like, he's an interesting one. Like, I think he's draft eligible as a sophomore, and I think there's still some like stuff to tweak out on the underside underneath the carriage here with him. But what is he? He's hitting like what, four something?
400. Either right at or close to 400. I knew he was near it. I mean, we had so many TCU fans kept saying like, why isn't he top 10? Why is it? He was always like in the like 20 to 10 range. I mean, he has the last 3 weeks, he has been absolutely dominant, week in and week out. Franco was my preseason pick of the year for freshman of the year, mainly because he was going to be a two-way guy. So I was like, okay, he's going to throw 98 out of the pen and he's going to hit 15 bombs. Like it just seemed like the numbers were there, and the fact that both of them were doing it. As a Sarloos, fan. I can't be happier for that program because the fact that they got kept out of last year's tournament was just an abomination.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Like, we can't make any of those determinations, but they clearly deserve to be in it. So it's neat to see a team that's just saying, you know what, we're not going to leave anything to chance in 2025.
And I think on
Yeah.
the offensive side too, you got to give some credit. Like Bill Masiello coming in there as associate head
Yeah.
coach and leading the offense now, like that. He's another coach that I love, and just seeing him kind of come in there and kind of turn things around for them has been awesome. Yeah. Should we move over to the draft side now? Do you want to move over?
Just
to
one thing. I have to stick up for my Jayhawks. Last for I almost
sorry,
feel
Jayhawks.
like
I threw you under the bus there.
yeah, I feel like this is more of a statement for TCU than a statement against Kansas. Kansas is a good team. I just think they ran into a TCU team that wanted to say, like, we're legit, like, hear us. And that stadium in Fort Worth, when the fans get behind it, that is a hard place to win. So I think you saw a combination of a few factors and probably a little bit of nerves from Kansas because, I mean, they were ranked by everybody. I mean, they were the darling of college baseball. So I think you saw kind of a perfect storm for Kansas, but I don't think that's any sort of, oh, I can now make a blanket statement that Kansas wasn't legit because they are. It's just at times you find a weekend where the other team is better, and that weekend TCU was clearly better.
Yeah, and you want to talk about a team that's opposite of Vanderbilt. They have multiple guys who are probably going to hit 15 home runs by the end of the season. They already got one with 15.
They already set the single season home run record for them as a program, and they got like 25 games left in the season. So
76 home runs.
Yeah, so I saw a graphic that their program put. It was like most home runs in a season, and I was like, wait, where are we at in the season? So they're already setting records.
Yeah, they got quite a bit of season left to really kind of bust that thing open.
Yeah.
So let's move over to the draft side now. Tyler, you had some significant live looks this week. You got to see probably the best prep right-handed arm, maybe the best prep arm in the entire draft class. You got to see the best arm in the draft class in Jamie Arnold. Talk a little bit about Seth Hernandez, Jamie Arnold, some of the things you saw there.
Yeah, so I'll start with Seth. And, when we talk about prep righties, like that's a scary demographic. It has been for years. But when you look at what some of the successful ones have been, like Hunter Green, look at Jackson Jobe has finally made it to the majors and is doing well. Do I think Seth Hernandez has the tools to be that kind of right-hander? I think he does. There are some concerns that I do have about the fastball. And, yes, he sat 94 and 98, popped a 9 in the 7th inning, which was really impressive. Mm-hmm. But I wonder moving forward, unless there's like a not a significant change, but maybe like a bridge pitch moving forward to kind of keep guys off the fastball, because it's kind of dead zone. And what I mean by dead zone is like the horizontal and the vertical movement are similar. So like I think with him, I don't know the specific ones, but using an example, like having 14 inches of carry and 14 inches of run, that's dead zone. He does have some things working with him in terms of like it's a flat approach angle. He has the velocity. And it also helps when you have a 70 grade changeup, a really good curveball. And he also throws a slider cutter at 86, 88, which, he did spike it quite a bit, didn't really use it effectively, but has inklings of something to work with. I just worry if he loses some of the velocity, the fastball is going to play down from what it is. And, that's like the main issue I have with him. Maybe some sequencing, but it's a ton of pitchability for a guy that's essentially going to be 19 in a couple months. It's really impressive what he was able to do. Tons of projection, repeats very well. This looks like the kind of guy, given the class that we have, like not the greatest class. We've been on record saying that over the past few weeks, and just looking at the college hitters too, like that's not a very good class right now. And I do believe there's going to be a run on pitching just sitting in this chair right now. Like I think there's going to be pitching heavy and often at the start of this draft this year. And I think Seth Hernandez has the best case to be the first one off the board. That's maybe not Jamie Arnold, but moving past what I think could happen in the future, but like looking at what it is now, 70 grade changeup that he's just buckling everybody with. He's consistently putting it on the black. It's 15 miles an hour separation for the fastball. Really falls to the dirt. He's landing it for strike 3 against righties and lefties. So tons of confidence in the pitch. He can break out the curveball whenever, land strikes, get some whiffs. Like it was really impressive what he put together. And I think he ended up striking out 11 guys across 7 innings. And he was also hitting. He was hitting cleanup for the team, and he had an inside the park home run in that game too, which was wild. But for me, I think he's obviously like the best prep arm in this class. And is there a case that he's the best arm in this class overall? I think there is a case. But I do want to see that fastball get better as he ages, because I think your fastball has to get outs at some point. Does he hit that roadblock? Probably at some point. I just don't know where at this point, but he's got enough leeway with the secondaries that he has. I think he's going to be pretty successful in the long term. And then moving on to like the Jamie Arnold, who I was looking into it kind of more this past weekend, where the fastball command's not been there like it was last year. I think just looking at strikes percentage moving into this, like 69% strikes last year with the fastball. This year is 61. So not having the same kind of success with the fastball that we saw last year, but he goes 7 innings, strikes out 9 against a pretty talented Virginia Tech lineup. Like, we had talked about them sweeping Wake Forest at home, winning 2 of 3 Notre Dame. FSU's pitching is just so good that they really shut them down throughout the weekend, but that's a different story to kind of talk into. But he was really sequencing his fastball slider very well to start. Struck out 5 of the first 6 guys. And we talk about outlier traits and the release height, the extension, the vertical approach angle, everything about the fastball, just aside from the command taking a step back, really just glares at you on screen when you're looking at the data. Like, I think he threw a fastball from a 4.4 release height that had a 16 or 17 inch vertical, 8 inches a run, like a -3 vertical approach angle, got a whiff at the top of the zone at 94. That may have been the best fastball I've seen all year. Because you think of a guy that can release the ball that low and get that much carry from that arm slot is really impressive. And he was working with 2 different fastballs, has a sinker that gets up to 20 inches a run, has that 4-seamer to get whiffs upstairs. In the slider, it gets up to 18 inches of sweep and really keeps guys honest. There's a cutter in there. And that's not even mentioning the changeup. I thought the changeup was really impressive for what it was. He only threw it like 6 or 7 times, but sub 1,000 spin. It was something like 10 inches of depth, 12 inches of run. It kind of profiles like a right-handed pitcher's curveball with splitter spin, and it was.
So I was about to ask, is that a splitter?
I don't think it is.
No.
That was the thing. Like, I had asked the Virginia Tech TrackMan people, I was like, "Do you guys think that's a splitter?" And they're like, "No, they've been listing that as a changeup all year." So I'm like,
interesting.
You get more confidence with that pitch. It's a legitimate out pitch to righties. I think personally right now, do I think Jamie Arnold still has a case to be the best player in this draft class? 100%. Even with the command, I think when you look at like people in the past, like Chase Dolander had an issue with fastball command his junior year from a slight mechanical tweak, if we can call it that. And I think he's gotten that figured out with the Rockies. I think he even made his debut over this past weekend. I could be mistaken, but making that change at the next level is going to be crucial for him, because if he can't find that success with the fastball, it might not work out all that well for him, despite the fact that the trace and the stuff is really good. But I think it's just a slight mechanical twitch, or not a twitch, but like tweak to work on. Because looking at film, like, he's getting 7 feet of extension, which is really impressive. But also, I wonder if the arm's just slightly a bit later than it was last year, where he's kind of having to overcompensate and kind of rush the arm a little bit to be on time, and that might be affecting his command a little bit. I have to watch the film more, but overall, I think he's definitely going to be the first arm off the board, and that's even with like Kyson Witherspoon we mentioned earlier, climbing up boards. I think Cade Anderson is going to be somewhere in the top 20. I think it's a really interesting class on the college pitching side this year. But if Arnold keeps doing this over the next couple of weeks, I know he's had some not blow up outings, but had a couple outings where he wasn't up to par. But the last 2 weeks have been encouraging signs. Struck out 10 against Wake Forest in the game that they won, and then strikes out 9 and 7 and puts together his longest start of the year. I really like what he brings to the table, and I think there's going to be a lot of stuff to watch moving forward with him.
I love it. Before we move on to the MLB draft spotlight player, Jason, you got any thoughts on Jamie Arnold?
I mean, for me, the thing that jumped out was I think he had over 90 pitch count the last two outings, I think, and it was like 4 innings and 5 innings respectively. Like, and I don't think there were a ton of walks in there. So it's interesting because when you have that high of volume pitch count without a ton of walks, it's almost like is the swing and miss down, which is interesting, Tyler, because you're right. Like his arm slot just makes it to where it's so hard to read his pitch. But I've been in. I think this week was his first time over 6 innings pitched since opening weekend. So he's been kind of in this 4 to 5 inning pitch pretty much all season. I don't know if that's been. I mean, Florida State really hasn't needed it. They probably have the best pitching staff in the country, at least easily the best starting pitching staff in the country.
Yeah.
So maybe it's been by design. Tyler, you could probably answer it better than I could, but just looking at it from a box score perspective, you almost have to wonder, is this like an arms restriction? Are they just trying to get to like the 6th inning to get to their bullpen? Or really, what's causing it to where Florida State's basically saying once they get to the 5th inning, they're looking to the bullpen?
I think it's a mix of having to like game plan your pitching around everything that you have, because you mentioned like this is a team that has probably the best pitching staff in not only the ACC but the entire country. And kind of looking into it too, like there's a couple game stretch where like going against Miami, he got lit up a little bit. Notre Dame, he walked like 4 guys. And looking more into those, the fastball just wasn't really playing up to what it was, because the command against Notre Dame, especially, like looking at the game plan there, 48% strikes on the fastball, only 2 whiffs. I think he only had 1 against Miami as well. He's not getting a ton of chases. So kind of looking at what has been happening over the past couple of weeks, maybe it's a confidence thing, but definitely looking at the command of the fastball, not setting up guys, getting first pick strikes. You're not getting ahead of the hitters pretty quickly, and you're now having to sit, throwing slider, throwing changeup to get called strikes. Just lets guys sit on the fastball, and I think that's the biggest thing, is trying to get that fastball back to what it was last year. And seeing what he's done over the past couple of weeks, like he missed 8 bats on the fastball alone this past weekend, which I believe might be one of, if not the highest total he's had all year. And even last week against Wake Forest, he had 5 whiffs on the fastball and looked a lot better and more comfortable with it. So I do believe it's a mix of, there's been struggles on the command side for him, but also knowing that you have so much depth in the bullpen, like Peyton Pescott, John Abraham. There's probably a few other guys I'm missing, Carter Holtz, to name a few. So there's a lot to like about this entire pitching staff in general. And I can even say that like they didn't have their greatest weekend with Alini and Mendez. Like Mendez couldn't find the strike zone a little bit at times, and Alini walked 4 guys and still kept Virginia Tech off the board for a solid, I think it was 7 innings he went. So it's really a testament to what they've been able to put together in Tallahassee, and I think they've done a fantastic job of managing everything at their disposal, essentially.
Yeah, and I mean we're really nitpicking here because I mean we're talking about a guy with like a sub 1 WHIP, sub
Yeah.
3 ERA. Like I think he's a sub 700 allowed OPS. Like everything about him says like top dominant pitcher in college baseball. But it's almost like when you're to your point, Tyler, when you're trying to say like is this guy a 1-1? It's like okay, well, what little spots in the armor can we point at? Because really the full package is absolutely there.
Yeah, and I think that's I don't want to say like scouting at this point, looking at some of the top guys, is finding the nitpicks and finding
Yeah.
the weak points,
Yeah.
but it gives us an idea of what can be improved upon to the next level, and also gives teams an idea of what they can really trust their development team with. Like,
Yeah.
is this a team at the, like, say you're the Nationals at 1-1? Do you trust your pitching development enough to where you can get the command back in shape with Arnold? Or do you feel more confident taking a bat at 1-1? You have to make those decisions and kind of understand what you can and can't do. So in all honesty, is like that's kind of where we're coming from an angle of like we don't mean to be mean when we nitpick, but like these are the issues we got to kind of
You're right.
address. Yeah. So
And it just feels like bats are also progressing so quickly through the minor league system right now.
You're seeing guys
I mean,
debut like Wyatt Langford. Like that guy was up in
yeah,
the big leagues in like 2 months.
and seeing Cags hit a ball like 121 this weekend. I mean, you just see the ability like right in front of you every single day. And it's kind of hard sometimes to say like, okay, well, where can we project this guy in a few years? Whereas it feels like half of the first round, if they're college hitters, they're double or triple A by the end of their first year. It feels like nowadays.
Yeah. And it's also probably a testament to how volatile pitching is as a demographic in a whole, because you can fix one thing, but then it messes up everything else. So that's another way to look into it too. But yeah, it's like that's just the way scouting kind of is now a little bit. You look at the top guys, you try and find something that you can kind of like pick together and fix at the next level, while also knowing how good they are as a prospect. But then also, far down the list, you look for guys that have the outlier traits and you can make something out of it. So it's definitely at least for me, like what can be constructive criticism, I guess.
Yep. Good way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah, because like we want every guy to succeed at the next level too, and like that's the hope, right? Is like all these guys are going to figure something out and kind of make it and untap all the tool potential that they have.
Exactly.
Sticking with Florida State, got to talk about Alex Lodise. I almost called him Kyle, so I had to tell myself 100 times before I did that because Monty's been on here so much talking about Kyle Lodise, it's just ingrained in my head. This guy, Alex, is slashing 432, 485, 797 with a 1282 OPS. He's got 11 doubles, 2 triples, 13 home runs, 44 RBIs. Tyler, you saw him this weekend. He's our MLB draft spotlight player. He hit a massive rocket of a home run. Like, what are your thoughts on Alex?
Yeah, first off, I really wish I had open side video of that home run.
Yeah.
I thought I did. So long story short, the reason why the viewers at home got the behind no plate cam, the SD card in that camera on the first base side, completely dead. So rest in peace to any footage that we see from that camera ever again. But with Alex, there is some hope in terms of the approach, because like it's really aggressive. He's swinging over 50% of the time, chasing a lot. But the bat to ball skills are there to kind of, he gets 0-2 pretty quickly, but he's fighting off pitches, putting him in play, doing a good job of minimizing the damage. But he's not drawing walks at a high clip, but at the same time, really doing a good job of pulling the baseball and pulling it in the air. He's got like a 34% fly ball rate this year, not hitting the ball on the ground a ton. He's done a really good job of tapping into the power. I think it's probably average to above average at the next level. I just worry unless there's like a kind of like a tone of the aggression on the approach that I think pitchers do exploit him to where, he goes down 0-2 quickly, but then better weapons, better breaking balls too. I think his biggest issue right now has been sliders, where he's got like a 34% whiff rate. I could be mistaken, but that's the last time I saw it. But looking at what he is as a prospect, like he can stick at shortstop. He's got the arm. He's got the defensive prowess to stick there. The bat has obviously come around. I would really like to see somebody kind of toy the approach and see if he can get some more out of him while maintaining the pull fly ball prowess, and also doing all the damage he does in the air. Like it was really impressive what he did. And I think the home run he hit was off a inside changeup. It was like 107, 406. And when I mentioned in the tweet that it's going to the shed, there is a shed out there, and he cleared it. So, it's really impressive, but also kind of a tough evaluation to make for any scout. Like, where's that balance you could find where he's pulling the ball in the air a ton and hitting for power, but also maintaining the hit tool and finding a more refined approach. I'm really interested to see where he goes in this draft because he's a really polarizing player.
Yeah. I'll only say walking's overrated if you're hitting 435, right? No?
That's fair. You have 1,300 OPS. Walking's overrated. It's fine.
Who needs to walk at that point? I just want to turn it over to a couple guys that I saw over the weekend. I was out at Oregon versus Maryland, then Oregon took on Georgetown. Big guy that stuck out to me, literally big guy, because he comes in at 6'5", is Kyle McCoy, left-hander out of Maryland. Just absolutely impressive what he was able to do against a really tough Oregon lineup. In the cold weather and rain as well. He was sitting about 91 to 93 with his fastball, topped out at 94. Had really good feel for his slider and the changeup. Ended up going 7 innings, I believe, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 7 Ks. Let's dive into the data a little bit as I started kind of writing everything up. He's got a 63% whiff rate on his slider, which is pretty good. He's got a 40% whiff rate overall. This is a guy that was easy for me to kind of root for because he went through Tommy John surgery. I think the reason he wound up going to Maryland was partly because he got injured too in high school as a prep guy. So I wound up making it to campus, then got hurt and had to get Tommy John surgery at Maryland as well. So just seeing him out there healthy on the mound, I think has just been huge and awesome to see. It's just what he was able to do that Oregon lineup, kind of pick them apart throughout the entire outing. Wasn't getting a ton of run support from the lineup as well because Grinzel was throwing pretty well against him as also. It was just cool to see. And Tyler, I don't know if you have more thoughts on McCoy.
So I will say this because I know you mentioned him having TJ and getting to campus. I think the main reason why he got to campus was I think his UCL was already partially torn.
That's right. Yeah, and then he tore it fully.
And then I think he got up to 96 some point his freshman year, and then he finally blew out. So I think he's really kind of done well for himself coming off of TJ. The fastball is never going to miss bats, but the slider and changeup play really well. I think there's some pitchability in there. So I dig the profile. I think he's really playing himself into some early day 2 conversations. I don't know if he'll ever be a day 1 kind of guy, but there's some things to work with there. And I think coming off injury, if you keep him healthy, there's something to work with.
Yeah. And I agree with you on the fastball. It's got more sinking action to it. He was getting more of his ground ball outs with the fastball than he was actually blowing it by people. So second guy I want to talk about is Mason Neville. This guy just went absolutely off this entire weekend. Everything he hit was barreled up. He hit a grand slam against Georgetown today, basically to put them up 6-1. It was the first pitch he saw. I think it was a 86-mile-an-hour fastball from the lefty, and I was like, maybe not right there down the middle of the plate. But he was just really, really impressive bat. Athleticism definitely can stick in the outfield. Tyler, I know you had some thoughts on him, and Jason, you as well, but love to get your thoughts on Neville.
#good.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to put it. we mentioned pulling the baseball really well and pulling it in the air. Neville has done a very good job of doing that this year. I think he's got 15 home runs on the year. Big power threat. I think there's some swing and miss on off speeds like sliders and changeups he struggles with, but he really matches the heater. And he's got the speed and the athleticism sticking center. So he's really intriguing, and I think I won't say he'll surprise some people because I think some people have him a lot higher than what we have him. But he's going to go up quite a bit in the next update because I really do think that there's a day one label on his profile overall.
I
go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's some guys that you root for because, again, apologies for going back to the Arkansas roots. This guy was a top 100 recruit at high school. Everyone was like, is he even going to make it to campus? He made it to campus. I think he struck out 20 out of his first 23 at-bats. It was something pretty crazy. And he transferred after his first year. And there's some guys who just need a change of scenery. They just need a change. But to see him go from – it was up – I remember when he was getting up, and you felt bad for him because he was just striking out every single at-bat. And to see him just completely turn that around – and Tyler, to your point, really become this guy that's pushing up to being a day one player. He's a guy I'm absolutely rooting for. I remember watching him last year. They played in Arlington last year. And first off, Oregon always looks like they have a football team. They're whoever their strength and conditioning coach is, kudos to him because it is impressive. And amongst still this lineup of football players, he is a guy that stood out. A legit 6'3", crazy athlete. He just looks like the guy who steps off the bus and goes, okay, well, that guy's going to be some part of your program that's doing well. So from a number of different aspects, rooting for the guy. And in addition, I can add on to hashtag, yes, he is good. Good.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of having football team, they're 3-4 hitters, 6'6", 250, 6'4", 222.
It's crazy. You see them on the field. I was lucky enough to go see them on the field, and I'm not a small guy. I'm 6'2", 220, and I felt tiny around those guys. And they again, whatever Wheaties they're eating, keep going because it's working.
Yeah, Dominic Hellman was their designated hitter, and that guy is just a massive mountain of a human being, and he just hits the ball hard everywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't know where you play him at 6'6", 250, but he's right there in the 2-hole for them, by the way. He's hitting second, and he's just mashing baseballs. It's nuts. I think that kind of wraps it up for us. I had MLB draft games, but we're already at an hour and 13 minutes, so we're not going to go into the draft games. We'll do that next episode. You guys have any final thoughts? Jason, I'll kick it over to you. Any final thoughts?
I have no idea what's going on with this season. I really don't. Every time I feel like I have a top 15 nailed down, I swear to you, 7 through 15 just becomes jumbled again. I feel like I have a pretty good feeling for the top 5 now. I still have Tennessee as our number 1. I know others don't, but it's hard for me to look at one weekend against a surging A&M team and hold it against them. But I honestly love the kind of uniqueness of this season because it feels like you always have those top 8 for Omaha, and it feels like you could put 20 teams in there right now. It legitimately does. Yeah. So it's a fun season for baseball this year.
Yeah, I started doing the weekly recap this week, and we do the top 25 upsets, and I was like, oh, this is going to take me a while. It's going to be a long one
because they're not upsets. We let it off with a Georgia over Arkansas. I was like, it's not like that. I think they were picked to win that.
Georgia's it's top 5 team.
Yeah, it's one of the things that's any weekend could be a season in which any weekend could be a weekend in which Wake Forest sweeps a top 5 team or gets swept by a team that's not in the top 25. You just never know what's going to happen. You really don't.
Yeah. Tyler, what about you? Any final thoughts?
Kind kind of the same way as Jason. Like, I don't know how to really put the season into words.
Yeah.
Crazy is probably the best way to describe it, but we're down the home stretch now. We're a month away from conference tournaments, or like a month and some change or something. So really excited to see what happens down the stretch. And there's gonna be a lot of travel on my end. I'm not looking forward to it, but I know I'm trying to get to Wake Forest to finally see this weekend. Next weekend is gonna be like 3 schools in 3 days because Southern Miss is at Appalachian State, so I want to see JB Middleton. Come back for Duke. I think it's Duke, Virginia Tech, or like maybe even Clemson, NC State to get a last look at Clemson. And then Tulane's going to ECU, so I want to see ECU, and then Tulane's got an arm that could be a really good starter at the next level. So going to be a lot of travel, going to be a lot of fun, and we'll see what happens. Mentioned last podcast, like top 300 is being worked on.
Yep.
Don't have a timetable on that, but we're also going to be doing a mock draft here soon. So really excited for what we have going on. And we're also going to be doing, or at least like what I want to try and do is like individualized scouting reports on guys that we've seen this year. What we talked about tonight with Jamie Arnold is going to be in his. He's going to be the first one. And I feel like there's going to be a lot more guys that we can go down this list and talk about in those reports. So very excited to kind of dig in and get those out, because I feel like that's really gives readers a really good idea of what we're seeing at the field and what we can kind of like put a scouting presence on for some of these guys. So really, really excited to kind of get started on that and put out actual reports.
Yeah. You had that great one, like you said, Caleb Wheeler came out. Got to check that out on justbaseball.com. We got plenty of content coming your way. We got everybody doing some incredible stuff. I think JD had his recent draft stock risers fallers article come out not too long ago. I had one on the coolest uniforms in college baseball. Check it out. Pretty cool. I don't know if you like that kind of thing. But yeah, got a ton of deep dives coming. I'm going to try to be going out to the field potentially next Friday to get UNCW, get a little Trace Baker, little Zane Taylor, little Tanner Thatch. We'll see if I can make it out to that one. Not a ton. My travel schedule is much lighter than yours. I will not be going out to multiple places, but weekend after, it's Nebraska versus Maryland, Coastal Carolina versus JMU. Really want to kind of get down to see Coastal and see Caden Bodine. That'd be fun. That would be exciting.
Very good hitter.
Yep. But yeah, Jason disappeared because his computer died. So he didn't want to say bye to everybody.
I didn't even notice that.
Jason is gone. He's too cool. Doesn't want to say bye to the audience that he's now joining us on the podcast. He's like, don't care about those people. So I'm out. But until next time, we will see you. This is On the Clock. Thank you all for listening in.